Hello. Today we will get to know how to weave the boots. Moreover, totally different boots. What has led me to this idea is the fact that I have noticed that the boots I've woven are completely different from the ones woven by other weavers. It made me think, examine them more thoroughly, and when I did, I felt like improvising a little and trying to do several different variants. At first, we will make such a boot, and then on the basis of it we will improvise. So, for making such a boot, I've taken a piece of cardboard and cut the 22 centimeters long. It is the size of the cardboard piece I had, and 10 centimeters wide in the broadest part shape. It has a narrow spot like a real boot does. So we've got a workpiece, and this time I've decided to use, instead of regular white glue, this kind of glue. It is called Dragon, and I've liked using it very much. The salesperson told me that it was a little thicker than silicate glue, but I liked it because it doesn't make the cardboard sodden, and it grabs rather fast, and the smell is not hard at all. Of course, there is some unpleasant smell, but it is not annoying, and it gets blown away very fast. And its main advantage is that in a quarter of an hour it grabs, and in half an hour, in an hour maximum, one can start weaving. And there are no such drops in the places of joining with cardboard we often had with PVA glue that used to crack. So we don't have this problem anymore. Oh, by the way, one more thing. I've prepared at once the things I will use as a base. Here on the broad part I put a bigger jar, and on the place where there will be the top of the boot we put a regular 1-liter jar. In this case the boot will look funnier, more fairy tale looking. So I start the first row without the form. I make the tubes softer and pass on from the bottom to the walls in a traditional way. As tube spools, today I use rigid tubes made of A4 paper sheets. Lately I try to use them mostly. They are rather rigid, it is not very easy to weave with them, but I'd like to learn to weave with them as well. But they fit perfectly as the tubes of the base. Traditional passing. So the last pole. We have reached the first one. Make the last pole softer in order not to break it, and insert it. So we've got such an insole with poles. I'm going to make the first row without forms in order to lift and fix the poles. This time I will use soft newspaper tubes. Unpainted ones. The first variant will be unpainted. So I will start somewhere here. Here in the middle there will be a top of the boot. Using the method of 2-tube rope, bending and leveling a little, I fix, I weave the first row. So, having finished the first row and leveled the poles, I don't fix them here, they are rigid enough. I put a form. If the form doesn't fit in perfectly, it doesn't matter. I even like it when it broadens a little above the base. Later you will see why. One of the jars is narrower and the second one is wider, and we continue weaving this way 3.5–4 centimeters. We twine the foam round. We have woven 4 centimeters. The next stage of our work is to take the broad form away and bend the first. Let's start with 9 poles. What we do? We make them a little softer because they are too rigid and direct them toward inside. I've tried to weave together with the foam, but without the foam for me it is more convenient. They are rigid enough, so they stick the way you fix them. And continue weaving several rows, taking into account this bending. This way, lengthen the tubes, bend this way, and form. So we have bent these 9 poles, and further we weave around straight poles without bending them. This way we weave. Let's weave 3 rows for the beginning, and then we will see. The matter is that every boot is unique depending on its shape and size. That is why we have to define for each one individually. After we have woven 3 rows, bending the poles a little on the toe of the boat, and we will weave in the whole 3 rows. Our next stage is on the 9 poles we have bent toward inside. We weave 3 rows this way, here, there, and here. That is, we have to make the toe round. That is why we will use this kind of partial weaving without twining the whole row round. At the same time, for more convenient weaving, we will gradually double the poles. At first I will double these 3 pairs in the center of the boot. That is, we twine 2 poles at a time round. Twine them round in the way of rope. 2 at a time. See this one as well. Now we turn this way. We know how to do it already. At the same time we bend our poles. Here we have doubled poles. Try to keep the weaving thick. That is, we pull it a little this way. To make these holes as little as possible, we press them with the help of fingers and bend one more time. Now we can double one more pair of poles. Continue in the way of rope. Now when we have turned twice, here we have woven 1 row, turned, seized the nearest poles, turned for the second time. Now we will weave several rows round. At the same time, I want to get rid of extra poles right away. Where we have doubled them, we can cut off one in each pair to make weaving easier. So we weave 2 more rows round. In the places of turns, We try to press the tubes as hard as possible to mask the holes. I have woven one row, and now I see that I have to make one more doubling. The middle 6 poles are tied to each other already, and it is hard to weave. That is why I twine them round 2 at a time again. One more row round. So we have finished one more row, and now look. I see that we have to make one more partial row in this direction and back in order to bring the toe nearer to the top. That is one more turn. Weave the doubled. Lengthen the tubes while weaving. Notice that the tubes are of about the same width at both sides. That is why I connect them this way. In this case, the passing from one tube to another is almost unnoticeable. I've learned to do it this way. We will turn for the last time. Cut one of the doubled poles carefully. We repeat this procedure for the second time already. Our task is to make the distance between the poles of the toe and the top similar. If we see that it becomes too tight, we double them and cut. And start the round again. Here I will not double so far, we'll see. If we need to, we will just pull them apart. And further we weave up to the necessary height of the boot. As a rule, the boots are used as ornamental flower pots. That is why I use the jar here just as a preference point and continue circuit weaving. So the last stage is our work. Let me explain you why the boot is that tall. First of all, I use the completed boot as an example. And secondly, the jar has finished, so the flower pot of the size of our jar will fit in perfectly. The flower pots can be shorter, so it will hide well and the flower will be seen above the boot without the pot. It is what concerns the height. As for the bending, we will not make it too complicated. It will be hidden behind the flowers anyway. So our main task is to form the boot. We will make the simplest possible bending. At first I insert the working tubes we were weaving with behind 2 rows. And the next one, prepare the place for it. We were weaving thick, that is why it doesn't fit in very well. And at the same time we have to estimate the force we are applying in order not to break. Got it? And bend the poles. I propose to hide each one into the nearest hole. We finish the whole boot. Prepare 2 more poles. It is easier here already, where the poles are further from each other. Insert, then drop each one. I usually do it this way. School glue is thick, I pour tiny drops. In a couple of hours we will be able to start decorating and covering. The goal of this tutorial was to form the shape of the boot the base from which each boot design and weaver can create different variants. We will do it at our next tutorial. This one as well, but it was the first attempt. I will tell you about my failures as well.